The Krevlons, a powerful and technologically advanced alien race, had long ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. They had perfected a defensive technology that they called the Unbreakable Shield. This shield was not just a barrier, it was the culmination of centuries of research, crafted from materials so advanced that no weapon in the galaxy could breach it. The Krevlons had used it to devastate entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind but ruins and fear. Their enemies had either bowed before them or vanished without a trace. The shield was their crowning achievement, and they believed it was invincible. No species could stand against them. It was in this atmosphere of unchallenged superiority that humanity's arrival in Krevlon space was met with utter disdain. A tiny, insignificant human ship appeared on their scanners, its technology rudimentary at best, barely able to cross the vast distances of space. The Krevlons barely acknowledged it at first. What threat could a species so primitive possibly pose to them? The ship was simply dismissed as another futile attempt by some lesser race to make contact. Humanity, after all, was still in its early stages of space exploration, a mere curiosity to the Krevlons. They were not worth the time of any serious consideration. Yet, to the Krevlons' surprise, the human ship did not retreat. It pressed forward, crossing the borders of Krevlon space, until it arrived at the heart of their empire. The humans had a message. They wanted to meet with the Krevlon leaders to talk. The Krevlons, amused by this, granted the request. A delegation of humans was allowed to come aboard one of the Krevlon warships for a face-to-face discussion. The humans were not the conquerors they might have imagined. Instead, they came offering peace. When the human leader, a figure calm yet firm, stood before them, the Krevlons regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and condescension. The leader spoke with clarity, offering the possibility of cooperation, even friendship. He acknowledged humanity's limited technology, but also stated their growing potential. The human leader was confident in humanity's future, a future where they could contribute to the galactic community. But most importantly, he emphasized that humanity, while small and new, was far more resilient and resourceful than they appeared. The Krevlons listened, but with mocking smiles, dismissing the offer as the fanciful wish of a weak, primitive species. It was then that the human leader made a subtle but bold remark. He spoke of the Krevlon shield, their pride and most feared technology. "It's impressive," he said, "but it's not invincible. There are always ways to break a system, to find its weakest link." The Krevlons laughed at this. What did this human know of their technology? Their shield had withstood everything, from asteroid impacts to the fiercest weapons the galaxy had ever known. It was a symbol of their superiority, and the idea that it could be broken by a mere human was laughable. But the human didn't back down. Instead, he calmly added, "I would like to test it. If we manage to break your shield, will you consider peace with us?" The challenge hung in the air like a dare. The Krevlons were stunned for a moment, unsure whether to laugh or take offense. To them, the idea of a primitive human breaking their unbreakable shield was absurd. It was not even worth the effort to consider it. But they were intrigued by the audacity of the request. So, with little hesitation, they accepted the challenge, confident that it would end quickly. They even invited a few allied species to witness what they were sure would be a humiliating failure for the humans. As the humans prepared for their demonstration, the Krevlons couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. Their shield was not just technology, it was a symbol of their invincibility. And yet, they couldn't shake the feeling that the human leader's confidence was more than mere arrogance. Perhaps this encounter would offer something unexpected, but no matter what, it would end in failure for the humans. After all, they had seen nothing that could even remotely compare to the strength of their shield. But as the humans readied their simple tool for the test, one thing became clear. The Krevlons had underestimated them, and they had no idea just how dangerous a seemingly insignificant human could be. The tension in the air was palpable as the final moments approached. The Krevlons could no longer deny it. Their shield, once thought invincible, was beginning to crumble. The cracks were widening with every strike of the hammer, the vibrations intensifying. The shield, once a symbol of their dominance, was now showing its vulnerabilities. The Krevlons had spent centuries refining their technology, perfecting their defense to an unimaginable level, and yet, here it was, breaking under the force of a human with a simple tool. The realization hit them like a physical blow. They had underestimated the humans in a way they could never have anticipated. The hammer struck again, and the cracks spread further, the sound of the shield's internal structure giving way, echoing in the air. The Krevlon leaders were in disbelief, their minds racing to comprehend what they were witnessing. How could this be happening? The human engineer had not used any weapon more powerful than a simple hammer, a tool that seemed laughable in comparison to the vast array of destructive technology at the Krevlons' disposal. And yet it was working. Slowly but surely, the shield was shattering. There was no explosive burst of energy, no grand display of force, just the rhythmic, methodical tapping of the hammer against the shield, each strike bringing them closer to the unthinkable. The Krevlons had always prided themselves on their ability to predict outcomes, to calculate every possible scenario. But this was something they had never anticipated. The hammer, the tool of a species they had deemed primitive, was exploiting a fundamental weakness in their perfect design. The Krevlons had built their shield to withstand attacks from weapons more powerful than anything humanity could produce. But they had failed to account for the resonance, the natural frequencies that could destabilize their shield from within. With each strike, the resonance grew more pronounced, and the cracks in the shield grew deeper. The once unshakable barrier now looked fragile, its structural integrity rapidly diminishing. The Krevlons, once so confident in their superiority, were now scrambling to find an explanation. Their technology had been designed to endure, to repel every force in the galaxy. But this human, this engineer with his hammer, had found a way around it, exploiting a flaw they had never even considered. As the final blow landed, the shield erupted into a cascade of sparks and shattered fragments, disintegrating into nothingness. The Krevlon leaders stood in stunned silence, unable to process what had just occurred. The hum of the shield faded, replaced by the sound of the human's steady breathing. The engineer lowered the hammer, his task complete. The Krevlons were left in awe. Their greatest creation, their most powerful weapon, had been reduced to rubble by a human with nothing more than a simple hammer. The defeat was total. There was no denying it. The human had not only broken their shield, but had shattered the illusion of invincibility they had built their empire upon. The Krevlons had always believed that their technology was beyond reproach, that no species could ever challenge them. But now, they were faced with the undeniable truth. Humanity was not what they had thought. The human engineer stood silently, watching as the Krevlons processed the magnitude of what had just transpired. He had not needed to boast or threaten. He had simply done what needed to be done. The simplicity of it was almost poetic. In a moment of unexpected clarity, the Krevlons realized that their strength lay not in their technology, but in their belief that they were beyond reproach, beyond challenge. They had placed their faith in their shield, but it was not their shield that had failed them. It was their arrogance. The human leader stepped forward, calmly addressing the Krevlons. He did not gloat, did not revel in the victory. He simply stated that humanity had no interest in domination or conquest, but only in securing peace and cooperation. He spoke of the strength of humanity, not in terms of weapons or technology, but in their ability to adapt, to think creatively, to find solutions where others saw none. Humanity had faced extinction more than once, and had always found a way to survive, to overcome the odds. The hammer, the simple tool that had broken the shield, was a symbol of that resilience. For the first time, the Krevlons looked at humanity not as a weak, insignificant species, but as a formidable force in its own right. The human engineer had done what no one had thought possible, and in doing so, had earned their respect. The shield was gone, and with it, the facade of Krevlon's superiority. The truth was clear now. The Krevlons had never truly understood humanity. They had dismissed humans as primitive, as easy targets, but now they saw that the true strength of humanity lay not in their weapons, but in their will to persevere, to think differently, to never give up. The Krevlons stood in silence, contemplating the implications of the human victory. It was not just a defeat of their shield, it was a defeat of their entire worldview. The humans had shown them that there was always a way they had missed, and that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. The shield was gone, but humanity's place in the galaxy was now undeniable.